Welcome to David and David on Real Estate. Join us as we explore the ins and outs of the real estate market.
Good afternoon and welcome to the David and David on Real Estate podcast. And today is a very special episode. You know, I find myself saying that all the time. Every episode is a special episode, but today we have a very cool guest, Peter Mueller from the Profit Center. We're on episode number 90. Peter, welcome so much to the David and David on Real Estate podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is exciting. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, that's great. We're really happy to have you on here. You've got quite an interesting story to tell and background. We got a whole bunch of questions we want to get into, but maybe you could just give everybody a little bit of your history and background, and that way it gives everybody will understand why you're authority on some of the questions we're going to be asking you in a few minutes.
Yeah, I can't believe that it's going to be coming on to 40 years next year, but I started in real estate when I was 19 years old and kind of naturally evolved into the business because my parents were in real estate. So, I got lucky because, when you're 18, 19 years old, you don't know who you are. You don't know what your characteristics or strengths are. You don't even know personality, profiles. So I got fortunate because I'm a natural born salesperson. I guess I could have known that if I looked in my past as a kid and with the beer bottles collection and, selling firecrackers even and all these other things. But so, sales came naturally to me, but I didn't know that. So I was struggling getting my grade 13, my last semester, grade 13, 3 more credits. And it was so horrible. I just said, okay, this isn't working out. And, I'll just get my license in the meantime. So that's kind of how it all started. And, so I worked for my parents for 1.5 years, 2 years. And then the day came when I realized I didn't have an identity. Like my mom, I said to my mom, Mom, everybody calls me your son or Walter's son or Ann's son. So I joined a company called Family Trust back in the day. And of course, that made my mom cry, but she understood, I had to leave her. So if you ever talk about recruiting, it's like your own son leaves your company, right? So I sold for 10 years. I did very well. I was just very blessed because sales came very naturally to me. And here's a typical salesperson perspective. Money was never the motivator for me. Being number one or being on the top 10 list was the motivator. So I used to that's what drove me. And so I was in an office about 90 agents. I was number one in the office, here's an interesting story for the brokers that may be listening. Nobody ever approached me aggressively or even subtly to be recruited. I think they were probably intimidated by me. And that there's no reason why. I mean, I'm a friendly guy. If you called me up and says you want to go for a beer, I'd be like right there. And if you want to talk about real estate or your company, go for it, right? So I did that for 10 years. And then I had this bright idea. Let's start a brokerage. And so I did that in 94 when I was 29 years old. And I recruited, got to 60 agents, got to a point where I realized for the work and effort I was putting in, I wasn't getting the return. And so I got to try to keep this story as short as I can. So the best thing that ever happened to me in my career, first of all, is having a profitability mindset, somebody teaching me that. And about learning that being a technician and a business person are two different things, completely different things. And I wish I knew that perspective when I was young, because I would have saved so much more money. I could have retired off of what I made when I was selling, but I didn't because I spent it all like every other idiot out there, right? And but I always invested in coaching and training. And the best coach I ever had was somebody who was a business consultant, and he taught me a couple key principles. And from that, it changed my life. And it's sort of the genesis of the Profit Center today, just from that experience and this aha moments that I received from that. So trying to give you the Coles Notes version here as best I can. And now I've been doing the Profit Center for 15 years, and we are international. We just got launched into 41 countries in our training program for brokers, and we're building an agent program as well. So that's kind of my story so far.
Wow. I don't know where to start or where to unpack that, but I love the fact that you shared the whole beer bottle and story because and the fireworks, selling the fireworks, because I did exactly the same thing when I was a teenager and had a lot of fun doing it. And you know, it was never about the money. It was always about collecting, building, doing something different, and just occupying my time. But you know, those skill sets, you know, when all my peers were out partying and drinking, but I was building, you know, and I always had money because of those little things I used to do. And you know, I call them little sacrifices I used to make when I was younger, right? But you know, they teach you such basic skills that most people don't learn because they don't go through, hey, let's collect 100 bottles to make $10.
Yeah.
Let's not spend
There were
that
2
$10.
cents back then each.
Right. Oh, wow. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
10 cents when I was collecting them.
Right.
Right. A little bit different, but you know, they build strong foundations, right? And you need a strong foundation to build a skyscraper. If you don't have a strong foundation, you know, and you start building here, or like imagine building a building, right? And realtors and other business owners do this all the time. They're like, okay, I want to build like a great marketing department, right? So, in like the analogy here would be like, hey, you're building the 10th floor before you build the basement, the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, and the 8th floor, and the 9th floor. You want to start on the 10th floor, and then you want to go build the penthouse, right?
Yeah.
It just doesn't work like that. You need a strong foundation, right? So, Peter, I you know, I love your story. I'd love to know what those business basics were that your first coach taught you, and like and you know, let's talk about those and how you build from those.
Absolutely.
Just before you get there for a second, just if I
Yeah.
interject, like I'm feeling very guilty right now because while you guys are out collecting bottles, I was out partying.
You're
emptying
the
those
one.
bottles, and I know I'm thinking, did I do it wrong? Could I have done it better? Do I need a do-over? But anyways,
Don't
go
do it
ahead. I'm
before.
listening.
That's funny. But you know what, guys? David, whichever, or David G, you know, he brought up about the starting at level 10. This is really exciting that you brought this up because I don't know if you meant to do this or not, but the training program I built is called the 9 Levels to Greater Profitability. And it's a triangle, if you will. And the first level, I call it the profitability mindset. And if you notice a triangle, the base is the widest and it needs to support the rest of the business model. So at the Profit Center, what happened, or here's part of the story I left out. So with this coach that I had, he taught me this profitability mindset. And he taught me about how to build a business and about key numbers and what you measure gets improved. And this is really critical because most important things people don't measure is profit. They measure volume, how many sales, how many transactions, how many closings. You know, they measure GCI, gross commission income, how many listings, and everybody celebrates that and you're excited about that. And they get awards around that, just like me, typical salesperson, motivated by, you know, acknowledgement. We are so superficial. It's embarrassing, but it's the truth, right? So guess what gets improved? How to make more money. But what's not getting improved is how to keep more money and be profitable. I wish somebody would have taught me this, and I wish my parents maybe would have done a little bit better job teaching me this when I was younger. So this is the beginning of it. So what happened is when my coach taught me about gross profit per person was the most important number to look at. And you can try to find the parallel to anybody's business this way. When he taught me that concept, all of a sudden, all he did was seed a thought. And I got to tell you something, not that I don't want to give him more credit, but that seed of thought germinated and grew, and then it evolved. And then what happened was I have this book that I'm going to be releasing this year. It's called How I Tripled My Net Profits in 12 Months. And brokers will love this because I didn't do it by raising fees, and I did it with losing agents. Now you tell somebody that off the top, they're going, how's that possible? Like, because most times when we're reactionary, all we think are the what's up front of you, like, oh, the solution. Oh, recruit more agents and you'll make more money. Sell more houses, you'll make more money. No. Or with teams, same problem. You know, oh, just bring on more team members and they lose control. And oh, I could talk for hours on this stuff, right? So when I realized the foundation had to be the profitability mindset, what happened was I started to take it one step at a time. My brain went to, okay, if gross profit per person is the most important number, then what is my gross profit? I had to know what that was first. So gross profit is
Peter,
pardon?
what is gross profit? Like, let's
Yeah.
really peel back the layers here.
Sure. A gross profit is the amount of money that's left over for you to spend and just use on your expenses. So an agent's gross profit essentially would be the net check that they would get from a broker. But for a broker, the gross profit is, you know, an agent maybe makes $10,000 commission, and you know, you pay them $9,500, which is the cost of sales, and the $500 that's left over is gross profit. So it's the actual money that you get to use now to pay for your rent, expenses, employees, and everything else. So I had to figure that out first, because here's the other thing, most P&Ls, profit and loss statements, they're polluted. And when I say polluted, I mean this in a maybe more of a humorous way, because many times people think accountants' job is to tell you how well you're doing your business. It's not. Their job is to help you balance your books and mitigate your tax liability. But if you think your P&L tells you a story about your business, you're absolutely wrong, because that's not what it's intended for. It's intended for, you know, for taxes. I created a method called a profit analysis, which was critical to our business today. It's absolutely instrumental. And where I normalize data or information so that I can compare it side by side to peer data, right? And David G, we did that together with your office as well.
Yep.
But what got me there was this initial moment when I was a salesperson being taught how to think like a business person. And so when I figured out how much my gross profit was, then the next thought was, oh, it was like 420,000, which was not a lot. I had 60 agents, and I thought, oh, I wonder how much that is per person. So that was easy math. 60 divided into 420 is 7,000 per person. And then I thought, well, wait a second, I'm only making $50,000 net profit. This is not what I came here for. I didn't start a brokerage and take all this risk for 50 grand. So I thought, what would make it worth my while? And I thought, well, if I could get to 10, that would be great, because 60 agents times 10,000 is 600,000. My cost for 370. I would have $230,000 gross or net profit left. And in so doing, I didn't know this at the time. In so doing, I would just just by doing that, increase the equity or the value of my business by at least $700,000. People don't think in terms of that. I didn't. I mean, who teaches you this? It's like, oh yeah, of course. The more profit you make as a company, the more it's worth when you sell it, right? So I wasn't that evolved back then. But so I got to that point, and then I had this crazy thing I did. So I thought, okay, so if 10,000 is the goal, like, notice I didn't talk about strategy yet. Like, how am I going to do it? I have no idea how to do it yet, but it doesn't matter. It's like, what do you want? That's the important thing. What would make it worth your while? That's where my brain went. And so when I thought, if I can get to 10, that would make it worth my while. I'll figure out the strategy later. So then I thought, okay, if 10 is the magic goal number now, how many of my 60 agents are earning me 10? You're going to love these numbers. 55% of my agents were earning me over 10, or 33 of the 60 were earning me over 10. 27 of my agents were earning under 10. But here's where it got even crazier. Then I decided to add up how much of those 33 agents earning me of the total gross profit. This is the aha moment. I gotta know, it just happened, right? 86% of my money came from that 33 agents, only 14 from the bottom. When I realized that, when I saw that with my own eyes, that's, first of all, that's the genesis of the Profit Center there. Like this amazing experience that I went through the School of Hard Knocks. And when I realized 14% of the revenue was coming from 2070 agents, I realized something. Leave these 33 alone. Target the bottom group that they're going to pay you more, change the comp plans, do whatever. Because the worst case scenario is you lose them all. I only lose 14%. That was the huge aha moment. I mean, anyway, I could talk forever on this stuff, right? Because it's a real experience. That's why I get passionate about it, right?
All right, so let's unpack that a little bit, because there was a lot there. You know, when you're talking about gross profit per, you know, per agent or
Yeah.
per customer, you know, let's
Yeah.
apply that to the typical real estate agent out there, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, when you said, what do you want? Like, that's
Yeah.
a great question, right? And I think agents need to spend time and answering this question in their own business, right? And I went through this with my girlfriend a couple months ago. And, you know, we sat down and, you know, started working on a business plan, and she looked at me and I was so proud of her. And she said to me, David, you know, I see how you built your business over the years, and I see, you know, your clients and the relationships you have. And she's like, you know, I respect that. But she's like, I only want to be working in the $3 million plus segment of the market. She's like, I want my, you know, average commission check to be $75,000. And, you know, I said to her, I said, you know what? The fact that you made that decision and came to that realization, everything gets easier from this point. I said, you know, congratulations. I support you 1,000%. By the way, she, you know, last year was her, I think 18 months in the business, and she did over 400,000 in GCI in her first 18 months, which is unbelievable. And she's, you know, she's doing really well this year as well. But again, it's asking those questions and determining what type of customer, you know, what is your lifetime client value going to look like, right? And then you can build everything. You can build your marketing plan. You can target. You can be, you know, more focused on achieving your goals. And I love the fact that, you know, you, when running your brokerage, you looked at your numbers and you said, okay, you know what, 33 agents out of the 60 earn 86% of my revenue. So as a business owner, I need to protect that. And I can't risk that. So I'm going to leave that alone. Yeah. But on the bottom half, where I'm only deriving 14% of my revenue, you know, I can be creative. I can take risks with those people. I can roll the dice. I can try different things, and I'm not risking 86% of my income. And it all comes from a position of knowledge, confidence, and it gives you, you know, the power to be able to take those steps and realize that at the end of the day, we're all business owners, right? We have to understand these numbers, and we have to ask these tough questions in our business.
I want to touch on this for a second, because when you talk about numbers, again, notice that the one thing that's missing is, it's one thing to say, what do you want? But the other thing is,
how are you going to get
it? What's left over? Okay. So I do business planning workshops throughout North America every fall. Okay. And I do a full day workshop. And one of the pieces I present on is called Stop the Insanity, Start Taking Control of Your Money Now. Now, most agents are not very good when it comes to money. And my top producers, my brokerage, were always getting this cash advances from me, which didn't make sense, right? When you think about it, but I do understand the mindset. I was one of those knuckleheads, okay? Back in the day. It's funny that I have a company called the Profit Center, considering the, you know, who I am, or, you know, fundamentally, which is kind of cool. But here's the thing. I teach agents this. I said, do you know that if you could live off of 50% of that net check, you'll never go broke and you'll always be rich. But the problem is, most agents, when they make more money, they buy nicer clothes, bigger houses, renovate the house, go on better vacations, buy nicer clothes. They just keep spending according to the money that they make. So the danger in having goals is, goals shouldn't just be based on how much you want to make, because that doesn't change your life. It changes your life that you have a higher lifestyle, but does that really help you? And I teach this strategy, I call it Stop the Insanity, because I lived it and I see it all the time. And I get the most testimonials from this particular piece, but I say, set up 5 bank accounts. And there's the first bank account is your needs. The second bank account is your wants. The third bank account is profit. What a concept, right? Fourth bank account is your business operations, and fifth bank account is your taxes. So what happens is a lot of agents make a ton of money, but then they owe the government $100,000 at the end of the year because they think they got more than they do. No, you got to look at it. Every time you get that $20,000, $30,000 check, think in terms that half of that I can spend, because you need the other half to invest back in your business so you can make more what? Money. But most don't. They always max out. They hit a ceiling. They never go forward. So really, goal setting should be about how much do I need to live? And if you can figure out how much it costs you to live and the lifestyle you want with the vacations, everything, double it. That's your goal. That's your minimum goal.
Peter, this is all like fabulous. And I'm relating to this, you guys are in the real estate brokerage business background. I'm thinking of this in terms of our law practice and everything.
Right.
We got similar things that we got to work in. Like it's, there's certain parts of our business that are very profitable, certain services. There's other services, they're so timely. We need so much staff to support it that they're very low profit centers. So we always have to try and do that analysis too. But my question for you is really from a real estate agent's point of view. Like an agent, pick a number. An agent sells a house, earns a commission of $20,000. Okay, like that's their gross earning from that. But not all agents do it the same way on the expense side, right? So like some agents might be spending $5,000 to earn that $20,000. Some agents might be spending $10,000 to earn that same $20,000 revenue. Yeah. So what do you do? How do you teach that part of it? Like, how do you control expense? Like, what are worthwhile expenses and what are expenses that you could probably do without?
Oh, love to
still make the same 20,000.
Okay. So I'm going to speak to this from a particular example, which I think is a good one to use. I had this one team leader. Okay. And this is more consistent with your question, because they have higher expenses, they got marketing, they got admin, employees, they have like almost a mini business in a business, right? And you can relate this to an agent as well. So just to give you, this is the reality, okay? This is the problem. The problem is they don't have control of their numbers, and when you lose control, then all of a sudden you just hope at the end of the year there's something left over. So this guy did 147 transactions this one particular year, okay? His team. And you're gonna love this one. All right. So one of the first things we did, I do coaching and training, and he's on a call like this. And I said to him, okay, next call, I want you to give me your sources of business. You gave me your list of sales. Where did it come from? Had a call like this, and he didn't do his homework, so to speak. And I said, guess what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to spend the whole hour together right now, and we're going to go through the list together. I'm going to create a report for you. So we did all of that. And then afterwards, I looked at all the numbers, and it was quite fascinating. So he did $1.3 million in gross commission income on those 147 sales, okay? And like over $700,000 was from past clients and referrals, okay? So keep that number in mind, about half, right? And then I asked him, I was looking through his source of business, and one of the things he had was a particular marketing thing called Zillow. Not that common in Canada, but it's very popular in the States. That's where he's from. Call it realtor.com or whatever you want. This is called Zillow. And I said to him, Robert, how much did you spend on Zillow last year? He goes, about $75,000. Okay. We just went through the source of business together. Do you know how many transactions you got directly from Zillow? He goes, no. And isn't this funny? It's his business. He's living it every day. He's breathing it. But that shows you how quickly you can lose control. And we just did the source of business just within that last hour. But I had it all added up on our program, right? I go, you did 4 transactions. And here's what's worse. Those 4 transactions were done by your team members, which meant you only made 50% of the gross. And the gross on those 4 deals was only $20,000. That means you netted 10 and you spent 75. Now, here's where it's really wonderful, where you can look like a brilliant consultant, but I bet you everybody in this call and everybody listening could say, oh, you should dump Zillow. Because he never measured his return on his investment, right? He never thought to look at that. And he was just getting focused on what? Just making more money, making more volume, getting more listings, right? That's the problem. That's the fundamental issue. There's the sales side of the coin, the financial operations side. Most agents spend like 90% of the time on the sales side and only 10% on financial operations. And I'm telling you right now, that's the biggest challenge, the biggest problem I see. Work with thousands of realtors and brokers throughout North America, now even in Europe. Fundamentally, all the freaking same. Unbelievable. So here's what I said to him. I also do a thing called analysis of team member profitability. And I said to him, I says, Robert, based on the analysis I just did here, you're doing 80% of the transactions. Now, 80% of 147 transactions is over 100 deals, okay? 100 deals. Your netting, his net profit was 386. I said to him jokingly, I don't know if you remember all these numbers now. I said to him jokingly, I got an idea. Dump the freaking team, work just with your past clients. You'd only be working with 59 transactions instead of 110, and you double your net profit. Right, he made 1.3 million gross, right? And he was only netting 380 or something like that. But his past client database generated for him over 700,000. So this is my whole point. This is what the Profit Center is all about. It's like, hello, what you measure gets improved. And guess what? You don't measure it, therefore you work harder, you get divorced, your kids don't know you, and you're number one. Well, whoop-de-doodle.
It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. And
but nobody knows how to relate that into their business.
Right.
They believe that, but they don't do that. And that's why we're here. That's what we do. Like we know how to do that. I get past it because I see reality all the time. And if you'd ask me to make up stuff, I wouldn't even make up to the extreme that reality is, because I just never would think I think that would be unbelievable if I was going to make it up. When you have real hard data and numbers, you're like, oh gosh, look at that.
But Peter, I think going through this exercise and asking that initial question, I love how you kind of broke it down. You said, don't formulate a strategy around, where you want to go, look at the numbers and analyze the numbers, and then say to yourself, okay, my gross profit is, let's say 5,000. I want it to be 10,000. And then you can formulate a strategy of how to get from 5,000 to 10,000.
Right.
And everything else makes sense.
That's
the love into place, right?
Right.
As business owners, what we do is we say, okay, we want to be more profitable, right? Like we have these generalistic goals, right? And general goals are hard to measure. Goals have to be measurable, right? So if you start at the bottom, right, and say, okay, I want to go, my profitability per client is $10,000. I want to go to $20,000 per client. Now you have a measurable goal that you can put some KPIs around, you can put some processes around, you can put some marketing dollars around, and then you can stay focused on achieving that goal.
Well, you're speaking, so with these 9 levels, and by the way, they evolved from my experiences and also learning from clients over the last 15 years. But so that first level is the profitability mindset. I'm telling you right now, that's the key to success. Look like a business person. If you don't, everything else, you're going to have a lifestyle, but you're always going to be stressed and running like a hamster on a hamster wheel. After the profitability mindset, clarity. You have to have clarity. What does it cost you to live? For an agent, what does it cost you to live? Most don't know the answer to that. Third, I call it budgeting for profit. That's where I have the 5 bank accounts, right? 50% should be put aside to reinvest in your business, taxes, and your profit account. The fourth level is what I call financial mission and vision. And then I've got alignment, and then value proposition, and then strategy. That's once you have those 6 levels of play. Now, like you said, now how am I going to do it? Because now you're motivated because you know what the outcome would be if you achieve it, as opposed to I want to go from 250,000 to 500,000. That's a superficial, not like that's not a goal. And what do you want to be divorced as well? You want this to happen, or do you want your lifestyle improved? Do you want to leverage your time? Do you want to hire an assistant? Like, you see, it's superficial to have goals like that, right?
I met a realtor that was doing $500,000 in sales, right? And then I sat down with him and I started asking him questions. And it turns out that he was literally spending $280,000 to earn that $500,000.
Right.
And I remember this is a couple of years ago, I compared it to another realtor who was earning $250,000, but spent zero money in advertising. All his were from referrals or direct sources. And, he worked 20 hours a week, had a great lifestyle. And at the end of the day, he kept more money in his bank account than the $500,000 agent that was working 60 hours a week,
right,
himself. And at the end of the day, he kept 250,000, and the $500,000 agent, after all his expenses and marketing, had $150,000 at the end of the day. And I looked at both these.
The worst part of that story.
$1,000 realtor than the $500,000 realtor, because the revenue at the top really means nothing,
right,
if you don't keep it at the end of the day.
I was just going to tie to what you're saying, which is so true. But the worst part of the story is they're getting the #1 award. And the guy who's got more net profits going, oh, congratulations, way to go. And guess who gets invited to speak at conferences, events about how to make more money and to be more profitable? No, you're teaching people how to make more money, but you're not teaching them how to be more profitable. You need the guy who's clapping, that guy, but we're not measuring that. And that's the unfortunate thing. I at the Profit Center, we're going to give out profitability awards.
Ooh, I like that.
I know, because I came up with a performance measurement on how to define platinum brokerages. And so depending on, and that's the awards we want to tie into with all these different.
That's really smart, Peter. I think that's really
smart. You know how many law firms don't understand this concept too? Because we're the same way. Everybody's just busy as lawyers. We're busy focusing. We want to do the legal work. We want to do, that's actually, we don't want to, we're 90% doing that and 10% on our business. Like, it's the same thing. Like, we're all, and you're saying you're seeing this all over the world and we're all the same. Like, it goes from business to business too. Like, I remember, my old firm, like, you'd go through these meetings once a year where you're figuring out everybody's share of the pie and how to divide the pie with your partners and everything. And we had one guy, he had, and this is back a number of years, so the numbers don't sound so great, but he was doing $1 million of legal fees, of revenue, gross revenue, in the day when nobody was doing that, which was amazing, right? So everybody thinks he's the superstar in the firm, but he's got 6 clerks working for him. He's driving our accounting, and we need extra admin people in accounting. He's wining and dining some of the clients, spending a lot of money on that, buying them gifts at Christmas time. Like the expenses were high too. At the end of the day, he had $200,000 left over out of $1 million for the partnership, like a 20% return. At the same time, I was a younger lawyer, but I'm grinding out $500,000 worth of legal fees, but basically doing it myself, using a clerk once in a while for some things, very little admin staff. And I got $400,000 left on the table for the partners at the end of the, but he's the superstar.
Right.
And I'm just a schmuck, grinding it out in my office.
We celebrate bullshit. That's the problem. That's a great story, Dave, because it's so funny how in the legal industry, mortgage brokerage, insurance, real estate, it's the same thing. It really is fundamentally the same, so that's a great story. I could tell that story in real estate.
It's true. Yeah. And really, like, how much should he have earned? should his piece of the pie been compared to mine and a bunch of other guys like me in the firm?
Right.
We're actually way more profitable, and we're leaving money on the, we're getting paid ourselves, but we're leaving money on the table for our partners as well. He was, he was using up every nickel of revenue that came in.
That's why you should do a net profit analysis for every team member. I do that with team. To your point, that's perfect example what you just gave, right? And I see that, we see it all the time. I'll give you a quick story to tie in with you, what you said, David K. I had this one broker I did this analysis for. He had 110 agents. He was the superstar of the region. He would be up there talking to brokers and they thought he was king, whatever, tut, right? Oh, I did the profit analysis with 110 agents. He was losing $250,000 a year. And I thought to myself, so you got this guy teaching your brokers, you're celebrating him? Because I was like, I could have been invited to speak, but he spoke instead. I was thinking, like, step this guy aside, man. Like, this is what gets me crazy, right? I wish I could give everybody a pill so they can get it. I think the Profit Center would explode in business if we communicate that.
Some of the wealthiest people I know wear ripped clothes and the same t-shirt every day, and it's because they have nothing to prove to anybody.
Yeah,
they don't have to show off. They don't have to dress up. They don't have to put lipstick on. Like they can do whatever they want because they don't have to prove anything to anyone. And that's, that comes from a position of confidence, right? It comes, I think that's powerful, right? And I think you're absolutely right, Peter. We should celebrate that and learn from those people. But it's the popular kids, right, who very rarely have it together. Very rarely have it together, because if you're the popular kid, and you're keeping up with the Joneses and you're driving the flashy car and you have the mega mansion and the cottage, then a lot of times there's very little left behind you, right? For you to have any substance to it all.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate part. Right. In business, you got to build and you got to, time is your biggest leverage. I say that to everybody. And, one of my mentors said to me, he said to me, and I'll never forget this because, I tend to be very hard on myself sometimes. But, one of my mentors said to me that, David, I earned the majority of my money in my mid-50s. Right. And this is a guy who's like beyond wealthy, and he's always been very wealthy, but like he built the majority of his wealth in his 50s, right? So to everybody listening, thinking that, you need to do this right away, there's no such thing. Building wealth happens in a systematic and consistent way over time, and little decisions that you make every day will go a long way. But you need to start with analyzing your numbers, understanding where your numbers are coming from, and then building out strategies.
Well, when you talk about analyzing your numbers, here's the challenge that most businesses will have, whether it be you, Dave K, with your law firm, or David G or Gorski with your brokerage. It's one thing to analyze your numbers, but it's another thing to know how you compare to your peers. And there's not a lot of information available typically to do that. So what we started 15 years ago, this process called a profit analysis, where we had to normalize numbers, because we realized that if I compared, let's say, even law firms, like P&Ls of every law firm and side by side, it would mean nothing to me. And it would mean nothing to you because you don't know how they're structuring the numbers, right?
Right.
Same thing with brokerage. Here's a typical scenario where you got a real estate agent, becomes a broker, maybe buys a brokerage of 50 agents, sells real estate, leaves his sales commissions in the business, maybe pays himself a little piece, runs and manages the entire office, but doesn't pay himself a salary, owns the building that they're in, maybe doesn't pay market rent. And I can go on and on and on. Unless you normalize these things, the information, the comparisons are going to be useless. So you have to normalize data. And this is what's missing in a lot of industries.
Well, I don't know how you got all this inside information on David's lifestyle, but I think you nailed him right there. I think he's doing all of that. So
It's only because I have a team of people like you that tells me what to do.
no, but it's true. Like numbers can lie, numbers can be deceiving, and that's like your point with your accountant. Like your accountant is supposed to just make sure you're minimizing your taxes. Is his number one rule. It's not a true indication of what your profits and losses might be and what your actual expenses are. You want to expense certain things in order to reduce your taxes, et cetera, right? And I'm the last person to give anybody tax or accounting advice, but I think that's true in any business. But I have a question, back to, most of our audience, Peter, as you know, are agents.
Yeah.
And one thing I'm sure they all try to figure out, and as part of David's focus when he was recruiting and things like that, is one of the big expenses that they have to figure out is how much they're paying the brokerage, and all brokerages do things differently.
That's right.
Right. So how do you help them analyze that and compare apples to apples and apples to oranges?
Oh, great question. So first of all, it's just realize that not every client is your client, and you want it to be a client. The analogy I like to use is this. If I would walk into a Cadillac dealership and point out, I want to buy that Cadillac, but I want to pay you the same prices for the Chevy Cruze, they would laugh me out of the dealership. They would laugh me out of the dealership. What are you insane? No, sorry, bye, thank you. Thanks for coming, but no. I find real estate brokers try to be all things to all people, and then they kowtow to the lowest common denominator. They negotiate on price, not on value. And in all fairness, they deserve the return that they get. So I know that here's another analogy to prove the point. And I see this all the time. Most real estate brokers, I know we're going to be agent related. Most real estate brokers were really great real estate agents, right? They had these amazing presentations. They would articulate their value proposition. They wouldn't consider cutting their commission. You know why? Because I'm the best. I can sell your home in less time and for more money than anybody else. And here's why. Boom, 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 boom. Don't you want to deal with the winner, not a loser? You want that confidence working for you, or you want to work with somebody who can't negotiate their own salary? Boom. Will everybody buy into that? Maybe not. But I got to tell you one thing. I want to get sold. When somebody wants to sell me something, I want them to sell me that they're the best. So same thing with brokers. Now here it says this strong real estate agent becomes a broker. And then all of a sudden, guess what happens? They fold up like a soup sandwich. All of a sudden it's like, oh, I want this and I want that. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll give you that and I'll give you this and I'll give so here's the problem. They're not even applying the same principles of success that they had as an agent to their brokerage. They don't believe in their own value. You know why? Because a lot of these agents leave because they think the fees are too high, start their own brokerage, and then they realize, oh, maybe this doesn't work so well, and maybe the broker's not making as much as they thought. That's the reality and the truth that's happening. So when I'm coaching any broker about recruiting, let's say, or agents even looking at a brokerage, do you really want to work for the cheapest broker? I want to work for a broker who is a leader. Somebody who I trust and I think is awesome, and they have a culture in their office that I know I can thrive in, so I can swim with, fly with the eagles, not swim with the ducks. So, and again, does a broker have that confidence to express it like I just did? Said, you want to work for me? You're going to work in an environment that's going to double your business. You want me to, and I'll tell you how, and be able to boom, boom, boom. But again, some people want cheap.
Peter, I love that. And I completely agree. Before I owned this brokerage, many years ago at the beginning of my career, I interviewed different brokerages, and I came across one particular broker owner, and this person was willing to give me the moon, the sky, and the stars. Right. And for a split second, I actually considered it. And then I went home and I'm like, what am I going to learn from this person? Like, seriously, what am I going to learn in my own business from this person? Like, this person just offered me everything, including their mother. And I'm like, number one, how do I have the confidence as a business owner who understands numbers, right? How are they running their business? Like I didn't understand it. Like the business formula didn't make sense to me. Like, and I'm like, what am I going to learn as an entrepreneur and as a business owner from somebody who can't even run their own business? Like, to me, that was it was the biggest joke. And then once I clued into that, I never looked back. And one of the biggest deciding reasons of why I joined Sutton Summit Realty at the time was when I met Brian, the previous owner. He just, I said to myself, this is a guy who has 40 years of experience, and I am going to learn something from him. I respected him as a business owner first. I respected the way he ran his brokerage. I respected the way, I just knew he's a great business owner. And then when I met his business partner, Jack, well, he was on a different level when it comes to, business and investments. And that really solidified my decision. I knew I wanted to learn from both these guys, and Jack Ellis and I are go out for lunch to this day. I'm in touch with Jack, and, Jack sends me investment stocks that he invests in. David, take a look at this investments. And, he used to own 6 different brokerages. So whenever I have any questions or whenever I have an idea, I pick up the phone, I call them. And, I lean on these people to this day. These people are part of my arsenal of tools.
If I may though, Dave, that the reality is that's how you think, and you're an evolved person. And if that's what you're trying, you want to track the same thing, the same personality as you. That's the problem. You see, when I would never work for a broker like that either, because I think the same way as you do. But some people don't. They just go, oh, what's your cap? How much does it cost? Well, you know what? If price is the only issue and you don't see the value, or if I can't articulate my value, then you're not for me. That's the thing. You've got to be able to clearly define who's my agent. Who's the person, or vice versa?
We're going to see that thought process and that mentality show up in that realtor's business too.
Exactly. You get what you deserve. You attract who you are.
Yeah. And
those same agents that are focused on price and how much they're paying their brokerage, and they're constantly pissed off at how much they're paying their brokerage, are also agents that don't use all the support that's offered by the brokerage. They're not attending the training sessions. They're not attending the seminars and the webinars. They're not going to the event. They're not going to free events. We did Realtor Quest last week. And so many aren't there. It doesn't cost anything. Show up, learn something, take advantage. And some are there and they just complain about how much they have to pay for support, but they don't take advantage of it. They could be so much more profitable if they did that. They'd be better.
Absolutely.
So anybody that's fixed on price,
and you have to decide that that's not your customer, and you have to be able to say, no, you know what, this isn't the place for you. But here's the problem. Okay, well, let's go back to the problem. A lot of people operate out of scarcity, not abundance. And because they operate out of scarcity, that's when I did the same thing when I was a broker. I sold my soul because I was in scarcity, and then I knew I'd live to regret it, and sure enough, I did. So it's about, so to solve that problem, you have to always be out there hustling and prospecting and recruiting, having a strategy, because you do not want to get to a place where you now are succumb to scarcity,
David Korman, if I had $1 for every time we talked about abundance versus scarcity mentality in this podcast with like all our guests and the different industries and different people coming on, like.
But it's so true, and it's so relatable to any business. Like, it's the same in your business, in my business, the same thing. We're always having a debate, should we be, are fees too high? We want to, the market's slow. We want to attract more business. Maybe we should lower the fees, which some firms do. And I'm going the opposite way. No, let's raise our fees. We're worth it.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a really hard thing to teach the younger lawyers in our office. Like I'm not afraid of losing a deal because of price.
Right.
I'm afraid of losing my great support staff and my great clerks because I can't afford to pay them, but I want to pay them top dollar because they earn it and they provide great service. So I'd rather do a few less deals, but get paid properly for them because we earn it and we're worth it. I don't want to be bargain basement, fly by night and cutting corners on what we're trying to provide. And that's a really tough thing, because at a certain point when things get a little quieter, you're going, well, are we doing it right? Or should we, do what a lot of our competitors are doing? and drop the
That's
price.
the
But
big-
it's
that's the big
it's not
question.
about price. It's
Yeah.
it's about service, quality, and being confident in what you're doing and what you're providing.
That's the word right there, confident. Absolutely. You have to just have that confidence. It's so, I'm excited that Dave, you're on the call being a lawyer, because it's encouraging for me to hear that the fundamentals are exactly the same.
Same thing.
Same thing. I should maybe just expand my portfolio and just say I'll invite all businesses, because it really, it equates. The only thing is I don't have the normalized data, because I've done over 1,000 profit analysis throughout North America and in Europe now. So I know the numbers of the real estate industry better than anybody will ever meet. In fact, I'll put myself against anybody, only because I normalize it. It makes sense, right? But I'd love to do it for the legal profession. we should collaborate.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's such a closed profession too. Like we have no idea really what our competitors or other firms are doing, or how everybody's set up so differently, because it's not something anybody's ever taught in law school, how to run a business. So it's just, okay, you start getting clients, you start doing it. Okay, we need to add another clerk. We need to add another admin person. We need to add, you don't know when, there's no plan. It just sort of evolves.
Yeah.
And that's how firms are, until they get to a certain size where eventually it's okay, but someone really should do an analysis here and try and figure out, because.
What'd be interesting, Dave, is I have part of my analysis is breaking down costs as a function of gross profit. It would be curious to do an analysis, let's say for a law firm, if I know what the gross profit is and compare that to a brokerage, they spend about 15% of their gross profit on employees. So it'd be interesting to see the relationship 15% of the gross profit on employee salaries.
We're probably 60%.
Okay, now hang on a second. So I got to be careful when I say this. So I extract the manager or the owner from the equation, the person who does the data. That's a separate metric I measure, only because it's so subjective, right?
Yep.
So if you take in management of who runs it as well, you probably want to add in another 12 to 15%. So let's say 30 total for everybody. So just to give you,
we're still double that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of people, in our, look, in the nature of our particular firm and the type of transactions that we do, where we're doing, high volume residential transactions, it needs a lot of people, and that, to work on it. And the margins are small and you need volume.
Yeah.
There's other firms that are built different. Like when we're doing commercial work, it's a totally different story. There's intense hours, but it's for smaller number of people. It's involved in a transaction, and there's more money per transaction. So it's a whole different model.
Yeah. It's different, but the same.
Well, I think, we're all business owners here, so we have to approach these issues in a similar fashion and ask the tough questions. And that's what's going to make us responsible business owners, right? But again, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. Focusing on the bottom line is very important. Now that doesn't mean you're going to cut all your expenses and cut your services, right? Because that is one way to improve your bottom line, but that's not the only way to improve your bottom line. There's different strategies, there's different ways to do it.
Yeah.
And Peter, as a business owner, it's important that I surround myself with the right people. As a realtor, it's important that you surround yourself with the right coaches. But having a coach is a really important and fundamental part of your growth strategy.
The right coach, if I may. The right coach is instrumental. It's the reason why I'm where I am today, because I still have a coach. And this guy is worked for KPMG and Bearing Point. He's a VP at a major bank in Canada. He's worth every penny, because he's taught me so many things, and it's helped me evolve. I would never be where I am today without that. So I would advise anybody who's serious about success, you need to have the right coach.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a training coach, right? That's important because I care about my physical fitness. That translates into my energy, how I feel, how I'm able to perform, right?
Yeah.
But I think having a coach, a business coach, an accountability coach, very important. It doesn't matter, whether you're a CEO or if you're an entrepreneur that's just starting out, but it's monumentally important for your growth and for your business. And look, mistakes cost money, right? So why not learn from people that have been there and done it? And that is a great way to catapult your growth and to get you to that next level. And a lot of people are stuck. They're stuck at a certain level. And respectfully, without changing something, it's really hard to get to the next level. And sometimes when you're so inundated into your day-to-day, you just cannot take that step back to see what you need to change to get to that next level. And when you're working with a third party, that they can take a look at your business and take a look from the top down, they're able to identify that a lot quicker than you're able to identify it, because we think we're perfect. We think everything we're doing is great. We think
Well, maybe you do.
what change needs to happen in our business. So I think working with somebody that has an external vision can get you to that next level quicker.
Absolutely.
Peter, we don't have a lot of time left, but how do you maybe explain how you get retained and how you charge for your services, the profit center? Like, how does that work?
Well, what we've found is our greatest return comes from being invited to doing speaking engagements. So I was in France last year speaking to this big company. They had about 1,500 attendees. We get paid a fee and expenses and so on, but where we sell our credibility on stage, that's where we drive a lot of our clientele, and from word of mouth. So that's how our business model is founded. That's why during COVID, it was brutal, because we couldn't travel, and all of a sudden now, you had to come up with new strategies. So we had to go to a webinar based and some other, strategies, obviously. So typically a coaching relationship is where I'll be talking to somebody like this on a call, twice a month. And we would start at the bottom with the profitability mindset. I call it my profitability business model. So I lead them from one step to the other. And then once you get the strategies, you measure it and you improve it. That's the top, right? Greater profitability. And then you go back to strategy again. You always vet it. You're always looking at the numbers. What you measure gets improved. So that's our process of how we help people. And they would pay us a monthly fee for that process, typically. And then I do profit analysis. So I work with large corporations where they have maybe 1,000 brokers under them, and where we just launched our training program, and where people see us, know us, hear us, and that's kind of how we drive our business. And not a lot of external marketing or advertising at all. Don't really need it.
Well, Peter, it was great having you on. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I'm a numbers guy, so when it comes to profitability, I could talk for hours just like you. But to all the realtors listening, look at your bottom line and consider reaching out to Peter Mueller at the Profit Center and do an analysis on your numbers and hire a coach to help get you to that next level.
Right on. Well, guys, I appreciate you having me on. And like I always say at the end of all my videos and my training, so Peter Mueller signing off, wishing you guys all a profitable day.
Love it.
Thanks, Peter. Fabulous, Peter. Thanks for joining us.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.